Alright guys, the point of this video is to compare my RPM trail riding and at like a wide open throttle 1/8 mile pull before and after the Dalton clutch kit. Taryn at Monsters of the North sent me this clutch kit, and of course I test everything I put on my machine. I was a little hesitant to put it on there at first because I put clutch kits on a lot of my belt drives and I usually don't like them. They're usually too much, they're too aggressive, the springs are too stiff. It makes it where you're trail riding, turning max RPM. That really annoys me. I'm going to show you some trail riding before and after the springs, and I'm going to show you some 1/8 mile pulls, basically wide open throttle for a whole 1/8 mile on a dirt road, and you guys can see the RPMs for yourself and make the assessment if you want this clutch kit. I think it's a really good clutch kit. They did not go overboard. The RPMs are very reasonable, and I'm definitely going to leave the springs in there. I really like it. After this clip of some fatty rooster tails, we're going to do 2 drag pulls in the 1/8 mile on a sandy dirt road. These first 2 are with the stock clutch springs. All right, 3, 2, 1. More run going north just to have a run in both directions. Same as before, we're going to do 2-wheel drive, high range, sport mode. Guys, so we're back out here testing the G3. This is after installing the Dalton clutch kit, and we're gonna see what the revs look like doing the same 1/8 mile pull on the same piece of trail. Conditions have changed slightly. It's been a few days, so there's a variable there. But the main thing we're looking at here is the RPMs on the dash. So I've got the GoPro aim kind of down low. I've got the RPMs as big as I can get them. Yeah, and let's see what RPMs I get along the pull, and you know, we can kind of compare that side to side with the stock clutch spring. So this should be interesting. 2-wheel drive, sport mode. Let's see what she's got. Let's see if we get some more revs. Woohoo! That's always terrifying. I definitely had more revs earlier on in the pool, which is good, but I'm glad they didn't make the springs crazy stiff where I'm turning extremely high RPM. That actually felt pretty good. Trail riding, my RPMs are about 300-400 higher, so I think I'm gonna like this clutch kit. I don't think it's like overkill, like a race clutch tune, which I hate driving machines with race clutches. So if you watch the tachometer there, you can see that I gained about 300 or 400 RPM early on in the pull. That's a really good improvement. And that's exactly what I wanted from this clutch kit. I didn't want it to be screaming the whole time. So I'm really happy with that. I got to go out to the drag strip and do some draggy pulls and see how this actually affects the acceleration. And I do think once I'm in the mud and there's more of a load on the clutches, it's going to help the upshifting even more. So pretty happy with that. The next few clips are going to be some trail riding to show you the difference at 20 miles per hour, how many RPMs I'm turning. All right, someone also asked about RPM while just trail riding. So I'm in some deep sugar sands, I'm in 4-wheel high. So before, at 20 miles an hour, we were right around 5,000 RPM. All right, this is the exact same trail. Let's see. We're up about 300 or 400 RPMs trail riding and high in this sugar sand. Alright guys, hopefully those clips are helpful for you. Just to document the setup right here, this is a 2025 XMR 850 with XMR 1000 clutch weights, HMF exhaust, 32-inch Aztex XXs, 14x7 Terache beadlocks, and it does have the Terache gear reduction in here. The only thing changed throughout this video was the clutch springs. Hey boys, finally doing the clutch kit on the G3. Yes, it's dirty, and that's because I've been going back and forth to the trails all day today, testing different tunes. and now we're going to test the tune with the clutch springs. So Taryn at Monsters of the North sent me the Dalton clutch kit when I did the map tuner and his tune and everything. So I'm finally getting around to putting the clutch springs in. I didn't do them right away because I like to change one thing at a time, control your variables so you can see what made the bigger difference, yada, 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 science. So obviously the point of doing a clutch kit like this is to hold RPM better. These CVTs are basically torque and RPM sensitive. The primary clutch has weights that sling out with centrifugal force, and that's what makes it want to actuate. And the secondary is more torque sensitive with the helix type thing. So they're kind of fighting against each other. Kind of a lot going on there, and tuning them can be tricky. So I'm really hoping I just throw these, bring in the spacer in here, and we're good to go. I really do not like tuning CVTs. It is not my thing. That's why I have a lot of Hondas, because you can shift gears and you have control over your gear ratios, like my Talon. But this is what you got to do with the CVT if you want to make it as fast as possible. Now, I am really not concerned with being as fast as possible. I mostly trail ride this machine, so there's a chance I'll take these clutch springs out if there's too many RPM while trail riding, but of course we're going to test it out. All right, so once you get this little C-clip off, which is kind of a trick, you're kind of got to go and work inside this tool thing and pick it out of there. I use some snap ring pliers to open it up and then use a pick to kind of flip it out. This is what you get. You get a steel cap, a plastic cap, and your secondary spring. Now on this one, this kit just gives you a spacer. You drop it in here round side down, it fits in there really nice like that, and that is increasing the preload on this spring. So because you're not changing the spring constant, basically the coil diameter is the same, right? So once the spring starts to move, it's going to take the same amount of force to compress the spring an inch as it did before. However, because the spring is initially compressed farther, it's going to take more force to overcome that. So it's not going to allow the secondary to start upshifting as fast. Alrighty, so this little tool I'm using, by the way, it's a piece of angle iron, piece of all thread on it. Really basic tool. It's like 25 bucks. I'll put the part number in the video somewhere. Really nice. I did what Rotex Redneck did. I used the spacer that came with the kit that you don't need to go here, because without it, this will fit over this. But you have to compress it down a lot, like all the way from there to there. The spring has a lot of force on it. All right, so I spoke to Taryn at Monsters of the North. He told me I was using the wrong puller. This is a G2 puller. What I needed was a G3 puller, which uses the same puller. It's like an X3 and everything else, I believe. So yeah, a lot thicker, shouldn't bend. Of course, we're gonna apply some oil to the threads, some grease to the tip, and we're gonna attempt to remove my primary clutch for the second time. All right, so my clutch is finally popped off, and it was really tight. I got it as tight as I could with this Milwaukee 1/2 inch 2563-20, really good 1/2 inch compact, and it was still not coming off. I was gonna break at the big impact, but first I decided to take a hammer and tap the end of the puller. As soon as I tapped it, just barely tapped it, it popped off. So this is a trick you can try before you break out the big guns. But yeah, primary clutch is off, so now we can start the process of trying to take this thing apart and put that new spring in there. Alrighty, sorry I don't have anyone to film this, but Rotex Redneck's video is better anyway. Hold it like this with one hand, take your other hand, smack the top of your puller with your hammer. Make sure you thread the puller in like 4 turns at least, so you don't damage the threads inside the clutch. And I smacked it pretty good, but not enough to really ding it up, and it separated. So now it's ready to come apart, I think, and we can see what's going on inside this thing. I need 2 hands. When I opened it up, a lot of belt material and shit fell out of it. Once you get all that separated, all you need to do is put this half of your primary clutch in your Amazon puller, crank it on down, compress that ring, and then you can get out that goofy snap ring. This has been pretty easy so far, but of course I didn't have to figure it out myself. I'm using Rotex Redneck's video, so I'm kind of cheating. This is a crazy clutch. I don't know how normal it is for all this stuff to move around. And mine does have a lot of wear in here, which is kind of funny considering that, you know, I really don't have that many miles on this unit. It's like just at its first service. So a little concerning, but of course, you know, every time I do ride it, I am in very dusty, muddy conditions. So I think my plan is going to be to try to leave this as stock as possible, do the springs, and then, you know, once this thing starts to act up, I'm just going to put a new OEM clutch in it. Because I do really like how the clutches upshift. They don't ton of RPMs all the time. They're not annoying as some aftermarket clutches, but yeah, I'm seeing a lot of wear on these shafts in here and stuff, so a little concerning. Just to measure the spring, so we have the data recorded. Obviously the alloy matters more, but 6.98 on the OEM spring and 6.93 on the Dalton spring. So it's actually smaller diameter. So if it was the same alloy, it would be a softer spring. However, obviously, you can change things other ways than spring diameter. But it looks like the same number of coils as well. So doing the old push test, they both seem pretty stiff, but the Dalton one definitely feels a hair stiffer. I don't think it's a huge difference. Again, that's not super scientific. I could put it on a scale, compress it in an inch, and measure the force and all that. We're not going to do that. We're just going to throw it together and go test out the RPMs on the trail. All right, we got this half back assembled. I did take a Scotch-Brite pad and polish it up a little bit. There was a significant amount of wear. That's a great thing about the gear reduction I made. You'll have less clutch wear because your belt's not going to slip as much because 20% less torque is going through these clutches most of the time. So, but there's no one-way bearing because it blips the throttle to make it grab the clutch with the engine braking because it's fly-by-wire. Put some Loctite on these, of course. Yeah. All right, guys, it's all back together. This bolt torques to like 90 foot-pounds. Had to put a new bolt here because it's like torqued to like 15 foot-pounds stretch procedure type thing. Cleaned up the pulleys with Scotch-Brite pad a little bit just to get some of that rubber off of them and some of the grooves. But time to go test it out. So I'm gonna go out, do some high-speed off-road in the sand with these Monster 32XXs and do some 1/8 miles and stuff to cruise around. Same exact trails that I cruised around before I did this. And we'll get a before and after video of the RPM at wide open throttle and the RPM cruising at 20 miles per hour in high range. Thanks for watching, guys. Hope this video was useful to you. Shout out to Terache at Monster of the North. He's the one who got me these parts and helped me kind of figure out how to put it together. And also shout out to Road Test Redneck for making awesome videos, showing people how to do stuff, because this clutch went together really easy, and if I hadn't watched this video, it probably would have taken me twice as long.